What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Turn on the Jets Live. It's been a while, but we're super excited to be back for the 2022 season. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Steven Russo. We just can't get over this. It's been a year since the show initially started, and we're super excited to kick off year two. Steven, how you doing? How you feeling?
What's up, man? It feels like it's been forever, and it honestly has. I think the last time we recorded was around free agency time, which is quite a while ago. But, man, we're back and better than ever. I'm super excited, obviously. A lot of good things going on at Forum Park. Excited to talk about year two of Robert Saleh. But how you doing, man? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's definitely a lot different this go around. I feel like last July when we were, kicking this show off, we were talking about how the expectations are really low. We didn't really feel like there was pressure to win games. We just wanted to see development. We wanted to see Zach Wilson, Robert Saleh, and all the young pieces. But now's really the time. We had a really optimistic offseason. We added a lot of pieces in the draft, free agency, complete continuity on the coaching staff with the exception of John Beck, who really wasn't part of it because he came in the middle of the season. But it's really now or never for this team. I know, people are saying, the Bills are far and away best team in our division, probably the best team in the conference, and arguably the best team in the NFL. But New England and Miami definitely have some question marks, specifically New England with their play calling on offense for Mac Jones, and obviously Tua and a rookie head coach in Miami. The Jets really have a chance to do something here. They can finish in second place. I mean, I'm not expecting it. I'm hoping for it, but it's not out of the question. You look at the Bengals last year, which is always going to be the comparison model for us. But, Zach Wilson hasn't shown that he's Joe Burrow yet. What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
I mean, yeah, I think the expectation has to obviously be improvement. And, I really like what CJ Mosley said was our anticipation should be playoffs or bust. And I mean, it's not going to come from ownership, but every player, every coach in that building should have that expectation. I think this team can make a jump. They should make a significant jump. The excuses all have to go out the window. I mean, the schedule is what it is. You can't make excuses there. They start with, all four AFC North teams to begin the season. But honestly, you're getting Baltimore at the start of the season, which, could be a roll of the dice here. You hopefully get Cleveland with Deshaun Watson getting suspended. So you have winnable games there. So the excuses have to be done for, and you just play your best football, win a couple of divisional games. I think the Jets from the start of free agency through the draft, which, you and I haven't gotten the chance to really talk about that live, how good the draft process was for them, but getting 4 players that were in their top 18 and addressing all the needs to where honestly, one of the biggest tackles, the biggest question marks going into this is the right tackle spot in Mekhi Becton, which we will get into. They've addressed a lot of needs, man. This team is ready to compete. And if some of these guys that they got a lot of playing time last year, and that was the goal, if they can make this year 2 jump, this should be a competitive roster that's at least willing to make some noise and hopefully improve by 3, 4, 5 games and get themselves into that playoff and wild card conversation.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. I mean, right tackle is a huge question mark because that's the assumption for Becton that he's going to move over there and Fancher retain his spot, assuming he's healthy. I think the second safety spot's a little bit of a question because you're banking on LaMarcus Joyner, who barely played last year, or it could potentially be Ashton Davis or maybe even Pinnock. So that's really the other question mark. And obviously the quarterback is still a question mark despite the, cautious optimism we had coming out at the end of his rookie season. But overall, I'm super excited, which leads me to our first topic of the night. Who are the 3 guys on the team? And we both agree we won't say Zach Wilson because we feel like he's the obvious answer here that you're most intrigued to read about in camp. So I'm going to pass it to you first, and then I'll try to make sure I don't copy you at all.
All right, you want me to go all 3 right at the rip,
yeah,
or you want to go
3.
back and forth? All 3.
Go
all right,
3.
so I'll say all 3, and then I'll go kind of through why. My first one would be Elijah Moore. My second one is Tyler Conklin, and my third would be DJ Reed. So Elijah Moore, obviously, we all have an insane amount of excitement about him. We did last year, getting him in the second round when we did. The way he kind of came on in the middle to later part of last season, I think was huge. But the reason that I'm super excited to see and hear how he does in training camp this year is just because when he had the most success last season, he was kind of the guy. Corey Davis was already hurt. He didn't really get a chance to even have playing time with Corey Davis. Obviously, the tight end room did not look like what it will this year. So being the guy last year, and he still had the amount of success that he did, when you get him into this offense with the additions of Tyler Conklin, CJ Uzomah, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and a healthy Corey Davis, I just think that'll open up so much for Elijah Moore to really see what his potential can be. Second, I just mentioned Tyler Conklin. I think we've already seen the beat kind of report that he's going to be tight end 1. I think what he brings to this offense, kind of a nasty attitude, I think is going to be big for a Jets offense that really hasn't had a legitimate tight end since Dustin Keller.
You might have three now, which is amazing.
Exactly. Maybe 1 year of Austin Seferian-Jenkins, but really since Dustin Keller. And honestly, he was good and a serviceable tight end, but not great. So to have a legitimate threat or threats really at tight end is huge for this offense. The last one that I'm going to say is DJ Reed. I could have gone Sauce here. I think everything you're hearing about Sauce is that he's every bit as good as what we have anticipated. But DJ Reed coming in from Seattle with the attitude that he has, kind of that dog mentality, and also being able to be a mentor to Sauce, solidifying a corner spot, having Bryce Hall, who's a fan favorite in New York Jets, but now Bryce Hall is a depth piece, which I think is perfect. Like that's a legitimate serviceable corner as a depth piece. So adding DJ Reed in here with the attitude and the knowledge that he brings to the solid system and how he can kind of take Sauce Gardner under his wing, I think I'm really excited to see how he fares in camp.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys are super, intriguing and guys I want to be hearing and reading good things about, hopefully. So we both agreed to not do Zach, so I'm going to pass on him. Elijah was a great choice. Probably could have said him myself. But I'm going to kick it off with Breece Hall. And the reason I'm really intrigued about Breece Hall is because he was the number one running back in the draft. And I feel like, given the fact that he went to the Jets, he's not being hyped about. Like, we're approaching fantasy football season, and everyone's always like, who's the rookie running back who could win you a league? I mean, Breece is going to be 1A. Like, it's already written that he's going to be 1A. Michael Carter's going to be 1B, but expect him to get the majority of the carries. And obviously, Michael Carter's going to do a lot in the pass game. I mean, he's awesome. He's got that breakaway home run speed that we've been lacking. I feel like we had Chris Johnson for a minute, and he was obviously a little bit past his prime, and he had that ability to get out in the open space. But Breece is a home run hitter. Like, I don't even know the last time that we've had like a prime running back that was like this. Like, Thomas Jones, who, former guest of the show, was one of our favorites, and he was obviously a hard-nosed runner, but he wasn't a breakaway speed guy. I feel like maybe Curtis. I mean, we didn't have LT in his prime, but he definitely was a breakaway speed guy in his heyday. I can't even remember. So maybe you could think about it if you go back in Jet history, because Curtis is like the first real running back that I remember watching as a fan. But like, we've never had someone who had this type of ability, at least on a rookie deal, who was like highly touted coming out of college. And, people are like, he's going to be a good NFL player. He may not be a superstar, but he's going to be a good NFL running back.
And honestly, Curtis wasn't the game breaker that Breece Hall, I think, has the potential to be. Curtis is more of a 10, 12 yards a clip guy and, get things in bunches. And if there were yards there to gain, he was going to get them. But to think about a game breaker, I mean, honestly, in spot duty, he'd probably go back to like Leon Washington or a guy like that.
Yeah, but he wasn't an every down back. But yeah, he did have that ability.
To say the Jets, to have a guy like Breece Hall, he's really one of a kind and pretty much the first one that the Jets have had anyway, in my memory.
Yeah. I'm super excited about him. It's going to be fun to watch his development alongside Michael Carter, who we both love. My second player is Carl Lawson. And obviously, a lot of Jeff fans are a little worried because it's a guy that he missed his entire first season with the Jets. He was tearing up training camp. He was making Becton look terrible, which we didn't know at the time could potentially be a problem, but everyone said he was by far the best player on the defense before he went down in Green Bay in those joint practices, which was such a tough blow. But he's young. I expect great things out of him. CJ Mosley was a guy who missed so much time. He was away from the team for so long. It was like literally 2 years. And he came back and he had a great season. I expect the same thing from Carl Lawson. I'm not expecting him to be a 15 sack guy, but I think he'll be a double-digit sack guy. And I'm super excited to see him along these other pieces with Quinnen, with Sheldon, even Solomon Thomas, who I think is actually going to be a sleeper guy on this defensive line because he has familiarity with the system and playing under Saleh in San Francisco. And I think he has that pedigree. Maybe this is the opportunity for him to unlock his potential. He's like 27 or 26 years old. So Carl, I'm super excited to see what he can do and really if he could tap into that potential that a lot of people thought he had in Cincinnati, but he just wasn't getting those sacks. It was always those quarterback pressures. And honestly, the third guy, which people are going to be surprised about this one, is Laken Tomlinson. You're probably saying, like, how often are they going to write about an offensive lineman? But I think he's going to get a lot of attention. When you think about what we were watching last year with Greg Van Roten, then we got LDT, who held it down, was pretty solid, but he was this, a replacement level talent. Laken Tomlinson's a Pro Bowl guard. I know people are saying he's 30. He may have his best years behind him, but typically offensive linemen can usually play into their mid-30s at a pretty high level. I'm not saying he's going to be Andrew Whitworth, who could play till almost 40, but Laken Tomlinson's awesome. He blocks hard. He has a high football IQ from everybody you talk to. I'm super excited to see him gel, and I'm actually really excited to see how Elijah Vera Tucker and him, sandwiching Connor McDermott, or no, Connor McGovern. Oh my God, Connor McDermott. I don't want to talk about him. Connor McGovern, how it impacts his play. Because one of the things I always hear guys like Damian Woody and other offensive linemen who are in NFL media say is like, if there's a guy on the offensive line who's not as good, but he's okay, but he plays with other guys who are much more talented, it helps elevate his play because it makes his job easier. So if you're having those interior linemen with strong play, when we expect AVT to take a pretty big jump and be like probably the best offensive lineman on the team within the next year or so, I think McGovern's going to play really well. And I think that we're actually going to be happy that we have him. Hopefully, we can get a year or two out of him and then maybe upgrade a position. So I'm really excited to see the ripple effect of having Lakin on the right side. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, if Becton's out there, he also helps him play a little bit better, because that was what we were hoping with AVT being on the left side with him last year. Unfortunately, we never really got to see that going because I think Becton played 3 quarters. I don't even remember. It's been so long, but those are the 3 guys. I mean, I'm obviously just excited about the team in general because we're almost at camp. We're almost at that optimism period. But I actually am optimistic. Like, I think this team is going to be better than people think. I know we're Jet fans. We wear the Jets goggles, as you've said many times on this show. But obviously, a lot of it hinges on the quarterback. But I think the team is talented enough to be something. Like, I don't know what they can be. But you were talking about the early schedule. I expect them to be 2-2 coming out of September, which is like, for the Jets, it's a high expectation because they don't win September games. Yeah. But like you said, you have Baltimore, which I think is going to be closer than people think. They really don't have an established wide receiver, with Rashad Bateman being their number one and he coming on a little bit at the end of last year. But Elijah Moore was more impressive. And then you obviously have Cleveland, with probably Jacoby Brissett being the starting quarterback, because we're assuming that Deshaun Watson's probably suspended for a significant period of time. Yep. Then you're playing Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. They beat Cincinnati with Mike White last year. Yep. And Pittsburgh is literally Mitch Trubisky, who I don't know how good he is, but their team is good. So why not 2-2? I really think it's possible, and I actually believe it. I don't know how the 2-2 is going to come, but I think 2-2 is going to be the result.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it should be the expectation. If you make it out of September 2-2, I think as a Jets fan, you have to feel good about that. Right. And Baltimore, listen, Lamar is Lamar. So that's anything but a shoe-in game, a chalked win. But to your point, you're right. And it's the first game of the season. So it's probably the perfect time to be getting them. You got months to prepare for this matchup. So, and then going back to something that you said in the beginning there is, the Jets have, with fantasy football, obviously, like, Jets have cool players, which is something we haven't been able to say in a long time. They have players that you'd actually go and want to get jerseys for, like Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, like all cool players that they haven't had in such a long time, probably since the early Rex years, which is just, it's so refreshing to see. I mean, really, they've added talent to this roster, and this start of the season is right around the corner, and I couldn't be any more amped up for it. Regardless of schedule, regardless of anything else, like, I think this team, to your point, has the chance to be legitimately good and surprise some people. And I am anxious to get September here to see how they do week 1.
Definitely. I agree with you. I think they finally have guys that are worth investing jerseys in.
Yes.
And just a reminder to people who are subscribers of the show, or prospective subscribers, if they hear this or watch this, we are doing a giveaway for a Garrett Wilson and a Sauce Gardner jersey. So make sure you subscribe to this podcast, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or on YouTube. And then obviously follow Stephen and myself on Twitter. We will continue to send announcements on Twitter about this, in the coming months, because we were aiming to give this giveaway at the end of July as training camp kicks off. So keep looking out for that, and we appreciate all the support of everyone who's been doing. But back to other things. Quinnen was actually in the news today because there was a list, like basically polls of executives, and I think some coaches. It was something by Jeremy Fowler at ESPN of, polled around the league for top 10 defensive tackles in the NFL. He was left off the list, and he was listed as an honorable mention. And I'm thinking is like, do we care about this? Are they right? Like, I'm curious what you think about it. I haven't seen the list. You have to have ESPN Plus, which I used to have, and it expired, but I'll get it back on it. But what do you think about this? Does this bother you? Do you think it matters? What do you think here?
I think, first of all, I mean, without looking at the list, I think it's probably fair. I think every evaluation that we've given, that Jets fans have given on Quinnen Williams, are pretty much based on potential, which I still think that he has. But my personal opinion is I'm just tired of talking about interior defensive linemen, so I really don't care, right? I think it's a fair assessment. I think you can't put him in the top 10 in the league of interior D linemen, but I think he has the potential to be there. But in a contract year, he's got to put up or shut up for a contract year for a third overall pick. I think you should be in the conversation of 10 best interior defensive linemen in the league. You should be in probably the 8 to 10 sack range per year, which he hasn't really sniffed to this point. So I think honestly, basing it on his draft position, what this scheme really should yield, he's been somewhat of a disappointment. I think at this point he's a solid starter, but for a number 3 overall pick and someone that is looking to cash in on that extension, and what that may look like, he needs to produce more. So at this point, man, it's a fair assessment, but I really don't care one way or another because I'm just tired of talking about interior D-line.
I know. I feel like Jets fans are just so nauseated by interior defensive line conversations, which is why whenever they're thinking about taking one in the draft, we're like, please not again. But I agree with you. I think it's a whole lot of nothing. I think it's just like, people are trying to get people to talk about the NFL because it's a dead 3-week period. Yeah. But I agree. I think it's a fair assessment because the statistics do not back him up as a top 10 defensive tackle. Granted, I know that position sometimes doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but I know the analytics and the PFF grades have always been kind to Quinnen, saying he has a good pressure rate or whatever that is. I don't know. I'm not really into the analytics on PFF as much. I mean, I look at them, but I don't necessarily think that everything is a true story of what you're seeing on the field and obviously on film, which is what coaches are looking at. But I do think, he does have to put up or shut up. You don't necessarily have to be a 10 sack a year guy. It's not really what's expected. I mean, obviously Aaron Donald's a defensive tackle, but he's one of the best football players ever walked on this planet. So I don't want to compare him to Aaron Donald or even a Fletcher Cox. But one of the things that I value and when I'm watching, the defense is he messing the play up? That's something that Chris Sims always talks about. And you've been following kind of his analysis, which whether you like him or you don't, I think he has a pretty good opinion on things. But it's do you mess the play up? Are you causing havoc at the line of scrimmage, which isn't necessarily going to be a sack or a tackle, but you're making life on the offensive line difficult for those guys. And he does do that, but he doesn't do it consistently. I just need to see consistency out of him. I think if he's doing that and he's getting anywhere between 7, 8 sacks a year, then you're happy with him. I mean, I don't want to pay a premium for him. Granted, he's making a lot of money on that option this year, but I think I need to see the statistics and the actual consistency on the line of scrimmage. So
there's games that he disappears completely.
Yes.
And that's the frustration with Quinnen.
You know who I can compare him to, which people are going to this makes no sense. I kind of compare him to Robbie Anderson when he's with the Jets because there'd be times when Robbie would be awesome and he would make plays, give us the long touchdown. But then there'd be games he'd do absolutely nothing. So it's it's very hot and cold. I know obviously it's a different position, but I think it's comparable when you think about the consistency of both of them. And it made sense why the Jets let him go. And ultimately he really hasn't proved them wrong at all. I mean, obviously replacing Rashad Perriman for him, it was a bad idea, but letting him go and not overpaying clearly doesn't seem to be a problem. But I'm hoping he shuts us up and he proves that, he was the right pick at number 3 overall. I would have rather Nick Bosa. I was hoping that somehow could happen. Unfortunately, it didn't. And that would have made this defense a lot different than what it looks like right now. But ultimately, let's just see what Quinnen can do. He's going to have Carl Lawson, hopefully, for the whole year. He's going to have the other guys, and that's probably one of the most talented units on the team. But I agree with you. I don't think it's anything. I think it's just, slow news day, dead period of football. So I think we can definitely squash that one. We're going to move, though, to one of the other controversial or polarizing figures on the team, Mr. Mekhi Becton. Obviously, there's been a lot of concern about what his, playing weight is. I don't want to speculate. I don't know. Obviously, that's been very close to the vest, whether it's with Becton's trainer, it's been with the Jets. But he posted a video, I think it was on the 4th of July or over this past week, of him working out in Dallas with Duke Mayweather. What are your thoughts here? Are you concerned that he's going to be on the PUP list because he's not in shape? Are you confident that he's going to be fine? What do you think? I'm kind of in the middle here, but I'm curious your thoughts.
I mean, I am concerned, and when you look at Mekhi, you kind of, from a broad perspective, right? He had what we would call a great rookie season where the only downfall was that he got nicked up, right? And he got nicked up frequently, which, that's probably the only negative thing that we talked about. But at the end of 2020, it seemed like that was a home run pick, solidified left tackle for years to come. With the only downside being that he would often get injured and have to come out of games for plays at a time. He didn't really miss significant time, but that was the downfall. Fast forward to 2021, and in training camp, he's getting eaten alive every day by Carl Lawson, with an entirely new coaching staff who obviously didn't draft him, and they're probably operating with a clean slate. But despite that, he still wins the starting left tackle job, comes out week one, seems okay at that point, but then gets hurt, 2.5 quarters in, and is done for the year. So the concerning part is that he knows all this, is obviously aware of all the doubters, wears T-shirts to press conferences that, made up like that, and knows, because from everything we've been told and everything we've heard, is that the Jets coaching staff has been very forthright with him about what they expect him and where they expect him to be. And you've had 10 months to be there, and you're still not. And you're making claims about it's easy to lose weight. All you got to do is, cut your calories and drink a lot of water. Okay, well, if it's that easy, then why aren't you there yet? So, and to double down on that, knowing that Morgan Moses isn't walking through the door this year, yeah, I'm concerned, because honestly, I think we've all expected that George Fant is going to solidify that left tackle spot. So that means Mekhi is going to the right. And if Mekhi to the right is going to be the Mekhi Becton of 2020, I think we can all be extremely happy about that. But that's a huge question mark. And the fact that if he's not able to get ready, we're a Chuma Edoga or a Connor McDermott on the starting right side is very concerning. So yes, I am concerned. I'm not a full panic button mode yet, but I am concerned that it's July and we're talking about his weight because it's not where it should be yet. And I think all the signs point to the fact that it's not, even though we don't want to speculate. People have said if Robert Saleh, if he was happy with where Mekhi was, Robert Saleh would have addressed it head on and said, Mekhi's exactly at the weight we want him to be at. He's good to go for camp. And we're happy to see him back here, but he didn't say that, which leads you to believe he's not where he should be. That was a long-winded answer. So yes, I'm concerned. I'm not panic button yet, but the concern is real.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because they were gassing up Denzel Mims, saying he's in the best shape of his life. They're talking about Zach Wilson being in great shape. He put on the right amount of weight so he can take the hits in year 2. I agree. Saleh is definitely choosy with his words. And if he had something really good to say about Becton's weight and physical stature, he would have said it. We would know. We wouldn't be talking about this right now. He's definitely the guy, I would say, that everyone's going to be thinking about most when camp opens. Is he in the first practice? Is he, because he needs to pass a physical. And based on everything that you've heard, he wouldn't have passed a physical a month ago. I mean, Listen, he's clearly working out. I know he's trying, but if they really have to potentially start Connor McDermott or Chuma Edoga, this team is going to be in serious trouble. And I'm terrified for that potential thought. And listen, this could be just something that we can laugh about in 2 months when the season starts and he looks good and everything like that. But until we get that clarity and he's suiting up in the preseason, you're physically seeing him on a real live football game where the bullets are flying, I'm going to be a little skeptical. I mean, obviously when you hear if he passes physical or not, you're going to be happy if he passes it, but you're okay, did he pass it by the skin of his teeth, or is he looking really good? So it's definitely something to worth keeping an eye on. I root for the laundry of this team. I liked what Mekhi showed as a rookie, like you said, in 2020. He looked like a franchise left tackle, slam dunk pick. But at the end of the day, it's a what have you done for me lately league, and he hasn't done a lot for me lately. So I'm rooting for him. I'm not going to bash him until there's really a reason to do so, which would mean him not being able to practice next month or, potentially missing time early in the season because of these physical limitations. But we're going to cross that bridge when we get there. And I don't want to jump to conclusions so soon. But let's hope for the best.
I know it. And honestly, everything we know about the staff, I don't think they just handed him the left tackle job last year. I have to believe that in part, it was probably a 3-man race for 2 spots, right? It was him, Moses, and Fant all competing for 2 starting spots. And when Carolina rolled around week 1, it was Becton at left tackle and Fant at right tackle. Luckily, we had Morgan Moses to slide in once Becton went down. Fant shifted over to the left, Moses to the right, and honestly, the bookends were pretty good. This year, we don't have that luxury. And if Riley Rife walks through the door, that's great. But honestly, he's a step above Connor McDermott. Yes, Connor McDermott. Now I'm getting him confused. He's a step above McDermott and Chuma Doga. But honestly, he was he's an 8-year veteran. He was a decent starter on a bad Bengals offensive line. So it's not up to the Morgan Moses standard that I think we all loved last year, because Morgan Moses was a solid starter that never missed a snap. I mean, he missed one game in 5 years with Washington. So there is concern there for that right side of the line. So as good as we feel about how well this offensive line has been rebuilt, that big question mark, it's a very, very big one leading into camp and the end of this month.
I will say I do think that they add some sort of piece as insurance, because I don't think that they really want to start Connor McDermott. I think they view him more as a swing guy than anything else. Whether it's a trade or somebody's cut before opening day, I do think that there will be another tackle that's added to this team. I don't know who, but I think Joe Douglas is going to keep every option open and take every phone call and see what he can do. Honestly, though, the one thing that could be interesting is maybe they trade Becton. Maybe they just see an opportunity to do so. I know that was a big topic leading into the draft. They took Mekhi Becton, but listen, you never know. Boomer Esiason thinks he's going to get cut, but I think that's a drastic. I don't either. Joe Douglas took this guy. He's not getting cut. I'd be floored if he got cut. Yeah. I expect him to be the starter on opening day. Let's be clear. That's what I think. That's what I'm hoping for. And until I don't see it, I'm not gonna panic.
He's the only one getting in his own way. So he's the only one that can control this. He's got to get his weight down. That's the only thing that's blocking him from doing that. So it's Mekhi Becton versus himself.
I totally agree. We're definitely going to recap this show with something that I know you love. You love Jets nostalgia, because truthfully, there hasn't been a lot to enjoy over the last decade or so, dating back to really I guess 2015 was a fun year, but it ended terribly. But really, if you want to go into 2010 was the last really fun year, even though it's a heartbreak in Pittsburgh. But something that I know that was on Jets Twitter, I think Boy Green had shared it, and then Joe and Connor were saying they're going to do a rewatchables of this game, was the Keyshawn playoff game in Jacksonville. So Keyshawn was actually one of the first jerseys that I ever had as a Jets fan, that actually we found it over the weekend, and I gave it to my girlfriend because it's small, but she could fit into it, and she'll probably wear it. I'll take a picture and make sure everyone sees it. Chelsea, I know you'll appreciate this. But walk me through just that game, because I don't really remember it. I know obviously it was insane. When you look at the stat line, not only the offensive stat line, but he also had an interception and a fumble recovery. That's just insane. Please walk this audience through it.
Yeah. So honestly, I mean, I love Jets nostalgia. That 98 team, I think rivals, in my lifetime, definitely rivals the 2010 team. And if you put up 98 versus 2010, I think 98 would come out on top. And honestly, the fact that they had a first round bye, were the 2 seed, and had a divisional home game for Jacksonville was just awesome. So the game itself, I think, the final score was 34-24. It wasn't as close as that, to be honest with you. I know that the Jets kind of dominated the whole game, but really the first half. And then Mark Brunell hit Jimmy Smith down the left sideline the last play of the first half. I want to say he burned Otis Smith. And the Jaguars got it to, I want to say 14-10, which made every Jets fan panic. Oh my God, really? We're dominating this game. And now we're going to let Jacksonville back in it. I think Jacksonville got the ball at the start of the second half too. So this whole thing, but honestly, Keyshawn had a monster year that year and just had a monster game. I mean, he was absolutely dominant. So he went, I want to say 9 for 121 with a touchdown. He had 2 runs for 28 yards and had a touchdown on a reverse. He recovered a fumble. I want to say that Vinny threw a pick. Either Vinny threw a pick or Curtis Martin fumbled, and it was recovered by Jacksonville. And then someone stripped the Jacksonville defender on the way down the sideline. Keyshawn was able to fall on it and recover it. So first down, change of possession for the Jets. And then the pick at the end of the game, I mean, Jacksonville down 10 points, they got to throw a Hail Mary, and Bill Parcells was just always good for this. He just always had that kind of extra little thing. If you're, I don't know, you are younger, but if you remember earlier in that season, they played the Colts, and the Colts were going to try a 65-yard field goal, and Bill Parcells sent Aaron Glenn back there to return the missed kick, which is the first time that's really ever been done and that kind of started that era of doing that was Bill Parcells doing that. So Bill Parcells had a Hail Mary package where he sent Keyshawn in because Keyshawn was a 6'4", lanky receiver to go defend the Hail Mary. Mark Brunell tosses it up and Keyshawn comes down with a pick. So that game was awesome. And just like every other, Jets game in my lifetime, it's followed by a letdown where, they had Denver and then let it slip through their fingers. But Keyshawn had a monster game. He wound up on the cover of Sports Illustrated the next week, which was awesome. I think it read Jet Propelled, which was one of my, favorite things of all time. I was a big Keyshawn guy. You not so much, even though you had his jersey. But it was a great game, man. I love talking that 98 team. That was a lot of fun. That game specifically was a lot of fun.
If for some reason this gets aggregated and sent to Keyshawn, let's be clear. Keyshawn, I totally loved you. I had your jersey. I just thought that for a number one overall pick, and that's just because those expectations are pretty much unattainable for most guys. Like, think of how many number one picks don't live up. I just think taking a receiver that high, he wasn't Jerry Rice. Like, I expect you to be Jerry Rice. That's it. Keyshawn, great Jet. He's not Ring of Honor Jet. And that's
he wasn't there long enough. He wasn't there long enough. But he had two really, really solid years, really good years. And one was with Vinny, and the next year was with, from Rick Meyer to Ray Lucas. And he still had a monster year that year. And then, was traded before the 2000 season, which a guy gone too soon. But I loved Keyshawn. I thought, but I can see your point. I think for number one pick,
that's all it is. He was a good Jet. And there's no Jets fan. Some I guess were a little salty because I feel like he didn't want to be here, which is why they ended up trading him. But Keyshawn was fun. He was like a personality. Look at him. He hosts the morning show on ESPN radio, which is pretty cool. But I don't want to be known as a Keyshawn hater because that is not the case. And you paint that picture. And know it's not true.
I said I loved him. I said you not so much. It's
it's not that. He's one of the best Jets ever. If you did a Jets all team, he's in that list. You know what I mean?
I would say.
If you do the Jets top 50 players of all time, he's in the list.
His time with us was short lived. That's all. It was cut short, and I think he just wanted to get paid.
Yeah.
But hey,
listen. In the NFL and really any sport, I don't blame any player who's holding out for money. I know that that's always a conversation. Do you side with the players? Do you side with the owners? Whatever. Especially NFL, but thankfully they've made a lot of improvements to give more guaranteed money. These guys should get every dollar they can. It's a dangerous game. I was just reading about Demaryius Thomas. God rest his soul. It's terrible. But he had CTE. It's because of the game of football. So I don't blame any guy for taking as much money as you can. So I totally get that. And if that's what his prerogative was, so be it. Any closing thoughts, Steven, as we transition away from Keyshawn?
No, man. I just honestly, I'm really pumped about this season. See what training camp brings. Hoping to get down there again, at least for one open practice, maybe another. But year two of Saleh, I'm really excited. I think just listening and reading some of the stuff out there, these guys are really buying in. I think the culture is changing. I think, winning obviously cures all that. So expectations should be to, playoffs or bust. That's my opinion. I think they have to get themselves to, really for it to be a successful season in our eyes is 8 or 9 wins. And I think they can definitely do that. But I think the excitement is there. I think Joe Douglas has done a masterful job of rebuilding this roster and adding pieces and filling holes. I think they have depth at places. They haven't had depth in a while. So I just think it's a really exciting time to be a Jets fan. And I think regardless of all the stuff that's beyond our control, like what the rest of the AFC looks like, how strong the division is, all that stuff. You play the team that's in front of you and we'll see what happens. But I think you're going to look at the end of this season, it's going to be a much improved Jets team with a lot to hope for the future.
Totally agree. I feel the same way. I think that we're going to feel really good heading into 2023, whether they make the playoffs or they don't. I feel like they're still going to be optimistic. I think you're going to see a lot of the things that this fan base has been starting for: competitive football, wins that they're not supposed to get, division wins. I think, improved quarterback play, hopefully, ascending quarterback play is what I'm really hoping for. But yeah, I'm super excited. I'm super excited to continue to do this show. And we're super excited to get the new podcast feed up and running. We appreciate everyone who has already subscribed. And if you have not, please subscribe on both Apple and Spotify. We potentially may get it onto Google Play, but I feel like for the majority of our listeners, it's always been Apple and Spotify dating back to the TOJ pod days. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us both on Twitter, and keep looking out for the announcements for Sauce Gardner giveaway, as well as a Garrett Wilson jersey giveaway. And last but certainly not least, make sure if you have not subscribed to Badlands on Patreon, now is the time. I know there's a lot of good stuff coming as we head into training camp and the preseason and obviously the regular season. Joe and Connor are doing an awesome job. And obviously all of our writing, if you don't know, is going to be on the Badlands Patreon, but will not be behind a paywall. So if you enjoy reading what Steve and I have to say about the Jets, you'll still get that. You don't have to pay for Badlands. We appreciate the support.